Breaking news. Viktor Gyokeres' agent will be present at the first leg of the Real Madrid Arsenal tie in the Emirates. Now, this is huge. This is a big reason why it's going to lead the whole public to believe that Viktor Gyokeres will be at the Emirates. So, not only is the agent going to go to the game where his biggest client at the moment, the one that's going to be cashed in by Sporting, is heavily linked to Arsenal. And he's going to their biggest game of the season. Not only that, he is actually, long-term friends with Mikel Arteta. So Mikel Arteta and him have been friends for a very long time. So there's already a connection. Now, Mikel Arteta is more than likely communicating with his agent, constantly talking about, what Sporting believe a reasonable transfer fee is. And now with Andrea Berta coming in, knowing that he has the green light to come in and spend a lot of money for Arsenal because they believe they are one transfer window away from being able to go out and win the Premier League and be able to compete and actually contend for the Champions League and get past the quarterfinals, because Arsenal haven't gotten past the quarterfinals since, they made since they lost to Man United in the semifinals, So, this is a very key thing because there's already a long-term connection between Gyökeres' agent and Arteta. You got Andrea Berta knowing that the priority is a striker, and reports have came out that Arsenal have been priced out of the Isaac sweepstakes, considering that Newcastle are highly likely to have Champions League football now that the Champions League will award the Premier League 5 slots into the Champions League, and considering they're in a battle with Man City and Chelsea, Newcastle have a very great chance of being able to get to the Champions League because Chelsea at the moment are struggling. Cole Palmer has already been outscored in Big 2025 by Bukayo Saka. Bukayo Saka hasn't even started a match yet since he's returned from injury. That's how poor Chelsea are at the moment. So it's very likely that Newcastle could actually overtake Chelsea and get a Champions League position. And if that were to occur, then they are not going to sell. And even if they don't get Champions League football, they want a transfer fee of well over 100 million to 120 to 150 million is around the range that they're going to accept and offer. So Arsenal, they have around 250 million transfer budget, and they are not about to waste more than half of that on one player. It's never been done aside from the Declan Rice signing. They never do it. So Gyökeres has been actually price tagged at 75 million, around that. Fabrizio Romano came out and said that Sporting are actually willing to let go of Gyökeres for less than 100 million because for the past year or two, they have been saying 100 million, 100 million, 100 million. But we've seen this multiple times with many players where clubs will put a 100 million price tag on the player in order to bump up the price tag as much as possible. And 75 million is a lot more reasonable, for a guy with these stats for the past 2 years at Sporting, considering they also won the league a season ago with Ruben Amorim. Obviously, Sporting has kind of taken a bit of a weakened approach, considering Ruben Amorim had, left for Man United. But at the moment, he's already outscored himself from last season. 30 goals in 26 games. Last season in 33 games, he scored 29 goals, and he's already, and the season's still, yet to finish, and he's already outscored himself. So he is very ready for a big time move, and going to Arsenal may be the best case scenario for his footballing career, because at the moment Arsenal are a club that you could throw any striker and they will succeed. You could throw in Chris Wood, he will succeed. You could throw in, even Oliver Giroud when he was missing all those tap-ins with Mesut Ozil, and he will succeed because Arsenal creates so many chances. You got Mikel Merino at the moment scoring tons of goals. You had Kai Havertz scoring tons of goals. They just didn't score enough goals considering the opportunities they were getting. They were what I like to call 25% from the field. Like in basketball, every 4 shots one would go in. That's what it was. And if Viktor Gyokeres could actually, push it up to 50%, Arsenal would be deadly. And that's why Arsenal's priority is to get a striker, because they miss that clinical man. And, if you really watch the Sporting games, Viktor Gyokeres, when he's attacking, most of the time he's alone on a counterattack. So with Arsenal, he's going to have a lot more support on the wings with Bukayo Saka, Martinelli. You still have Kai Havertz. You have Ethan Nwaneri. Obviously a signing on the wing. Maybe Nico Williams is heavily linked. I could see Arsenal still coming out and getting a winger. Odegaard, breaks through the lines. There's tons of options that he's going to be having when attacking. And he's going to have a lot better opportunities than he had at Sporting. Obviously, he's going to have a lot less space as well because in the Premier League, the defense has a lot more quality than what you have in Portugal, So that's going to be a thing, but he does have experience in England. He has played in England before. He's played at Brighton and other clubs. So it's not like he's going to be completely unfamiliar, but it's going to be a while since that happened. And he's going to be playing a lot more minutes and going to be a lot more of an important role than he did in previous clubs he's played in England. So it's going to be very interesting to see. To me, if I were to rank the options, the 5 options, 1 through 5 of Arsenal's, transfer list target in order, out of the top of my head, I would have to go Isak, number 1, undebatable. Isak is a perfect player for Arsenal in this position. Second, you would have to go Viktor Gyokeres, I believe. Third, Ekitike from Frankfurt. Fourth, you would have to say Sesko. And 5, maybe Thuram or Lautaro, one of the Inter strikers. You could be able to say something like that. But preferably, Isak is the priority, and honestly, the max that I'd be willing to spend for him would be 120 million. I think if we could get him out for 120 million, I would definitely pull the trigger because why spend 80 million? Let's say 80 million plus add-ons for Viktor Gyokeres and he flops, and then Isak, let's say for 120 goes to Liverpool. Let's say they somehow do it. Salah, Van Dijk, Trent all leave, and they actually spend big bucks, and they get Isak, which I don't think is likely because MSG is not known for being a big spender like that. But let's say they do it, and Isak ends up being a club legend at Liverpool and brings them to UCL glory. So it's like, yes, it's 40 million more, but 40 million more to guarantee success. I do that in a heartbeat, even if it costs us not signing another midfielder or another winger. I would rather get that striker because, as you could see, Newcastle, if you really look at their lineup, they have tons of holes, but they have Isak. They have Bruno Guimaraes. They have Tonali. They have Anthony Gordon. They have Dan Burn having a great year. They have these key players that are playing at such a high level. It makes up for them having a weak right winger. It makes up for them having, Dwellington in the midfield. It makes up for them having, a weak center back partnership. It makes up for them. They have a couple holes in the team, but it's overlooked because they have these moments from Isak where he scores a goal when they shouldn't have gotten a goal, and they're up 1-0 when they shouldn't have, and that's the difference on having a center defensive midfielder at striker and a natural born killing machine at striker. But anyways, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, leave a comment down below. Who would you, or let me know, what is the perfect striking position for Arsenal aside from Isak? Who would be your number 1 guy? But anyways, thank you guys for watching.